Hi, I'm Jessica, and when I'm not drinking all the coffee, watching Razorback sports, or hanging out with my family of boys, it's my passion to help elementary music teachers just like you find your unique teaching style. My goal with this podcast is to share helpful tips, strategies, and to give you the motivation you need to gain momentum in your teaching so you can continue being the music teacher rock star you already are. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. If you're new here, like you already heard in the intro, I'm Jessica Peresta. I'm the host of the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast, and I'm so excited you are listening in. Today is episode 87, and it is all about how to encourage love and kindness in the music room. This is a solo episode. It's just me chit-chatting with you about this topic because it's something I think is important. Teaching music is so important, obviously. That's what this whole entire podcast is about, right? But I think teaching is important, like I said, but also is teaching your kiddos that come through your classroom doors and helping them to be good people and good members of society and to grow into good adults. So that's a lot that's a lot on your shoulders. So how in the world are you supposed to do that when you only see your classes for a limited amount of time each week? This is kind of hard to figure out because let's say you have a 45-minute class period and you have all these objectives to get through and you want to do a warm-up, you want to teach. We're not going to get into teaching entire lessons today because there's other podcast episodes about that, but you want to get through all the music things you have planned, right? All the way from the intro, all the way to closing out the lesson before they leave. So how are you supposed to include things like kindness and love into your lesson plans? There are so many other characteristic traits too, you guys, but we're going to focus on these today because it is, after all, Valentine's Day. And if you're listening to this after Valentine's Day, which is in 2 days after this episode airs, but if you're listening to this after Valentine's Day, the things I'm going to present in this episode, you can use any time throughout the school year because it's relevant anytime. And this goes actually for any characteristic trait that you need to include in your classroom too. So, like I said, your job is to teach music, but it's much more than that. And so the first thing I want to say is find songs about kindness and love. All right. There are truly so many songs out there that are available to teach about kindness and love. So first of all, just do some research. When I'm looking for new music, that's kind of what I do. I go through the resources I already have available to me. You can just go to Google and even type in the words songs about love. And it can be that simple. And you can find a lot of songs that pop up on YouTube that maybe you've never heard before, or you find them for the first time. And also, go to, like I said, the resources you already have. Ask other teachers around you, what do you have? Look in maybe you have old music books. We've talked about that before. Old music textbooks sitting in your classroom. Look through those. And there's sometimes some amazing songs in there that are just kind of like treasures waiting to be found. And then also go to Music K8 or any other website like that where you constantly find sheet music or standalone songs like that, or you can even pull from different programs you've done about these themes. But anyways, we're going to move on from that because you all know where you find songs and just keep doing what you're doing. But I want to talk about how to include kindness and love and not so much about where to find songs today. But I want to tell you that's the first thing to do is to find songs about those two topics. And kindness and love, I feel, go hand in hand. And yes, it's Valentine's week, so that's why I wanted to do a podcast episode about love. But there truly are so many songs out there. And what do you do with the songs? Well, obviously, you're going to sing them, right? But I don't want you to just present this song and say, here, sing the song. I want you to do something along with it. Have conversations with the kids. So first of all, sing the song. Let's say you're doing a song about love. They're going to sing the song, and then you can, as you do with a lot of the songs that you teach in your lessons, you do so much with them. And it depends on what the song is and what your students have already done, but you can, do movement, you can do composition activities, you can just simply sing them and add body percussion, you can add in instruments. There's so many things to do. But when we're doing something like this, where you're trying to talk about a specific word or words, then after you sing the song, talk through it. You can even split the kids into small group to say, talk about what love means to you. And then you're going to have to clarify, because they're elementary kiddos. I don't mean the mushy gushy kind of love. How do you love each other in this class? And have them have conversations about it. And then you can even have them, this is something I've done that's gone amazingly well, especially with upper elementary, is you can even have them write their own verse about love. And it can be simple. Let's say you only have like 10 minutes left at the end of class. Then you can literally say, okay, what I want you to do in your small groups is to write a verse about love. And maybe they've already sang 4 verses for a particular song. And then the 5th verse will be a verse about love. You tell them how many words you want them to include or how many beats you want it to be. And it's going to be sang to the same melody they just sang to. So these are the first thing, like I said, is to find songs about love, and then what you do with those songs after they sing it. What extension activities you do is up to you, but you do want to have conversations about, either as a whole class or small groups, about what does love mean and how can we include it in this classroom. So there's a few things I want you to discuss with your classes all year long as the school year goes on. And I realize as you're listening to this, it's February. So whether you've done this already or not, that's totally okay, because I believe every day is a fresh start. Every week is a fresh start. And it doesn't matter if you have not done this yet. You can implement this even at today or tomorrow. So I want you to express to your students that everyone is included. And maybe you feel like since winter break, the students have come back and there's been a lot more arguing, disagreeing, not getting along, not being kind, not showing love to each other. Then honestly, just expressing to your students this phrase that everyone is included, and also that no one should feel left out. Both of those two phrases go a long way. Everyone is included and no one should feel left out. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, well, it's easier said than done. I can't just say that and just expect them to, go and do what I want them to do. Of course not. But what I'm saying is students need to know your expectations. We've talked about this in previous podcast episodes. Going over procedures in your classroom is not just a one-time thing. It's viewed sometimes as just the beginning of the school year thing, where you go over it, you go over classroom management and your expectations, and then you're done. And students are just supposed to know. Yes, technically, in a perfect world, that's how it would work, but that's not always how it goes. You probably are tired of feeling redundant and speaking the same phrases over and over, but your kids need to hear it. They need to be reminded, not over every single procedure, but and I'm not just talking about the procedures, like the rules. Yes, you need to continually keep going over those, and not maybe every single one of them, but you're going to have to pull from your little bag of tricks and say, okay, well, they're not staying in their seats like they're supposed to, so I'm going to go over that procedure. But what I'm talking about today is some phrases maybe you've said before. Like I said, maybe you have not said these before. You also have to consistently go over those as well. So maybe you have already said everyone is included and no one should feel left out all year long, and you feel like it is not sinking in, or it was sinking in, and now, like I said, after winter break, the kids are starting to be a little bit more argumentative, not wanting to include everyone. Then just say those phrases again. Now, after you've said everyone's included and no one should feel left out, but you're still seeing it happen, then it's time to maybe address the class and have a discussion about what this means and what's going to happen if you continually see kids left out, or they don't get to pick their own partners. They don't get to choose their own small groups. They don't get to choose groups when they rotate, in center activities. You are the one assigning, which we're going to talk about that more in a minute. I was going to go there, but I'm going to wait for a second. Okay. I lost my train of thought because I do that a lot, squirrel. But what I'm trying to get at is, if you have a particular class or classes that are having a rough time with including everyone and are leaving kids out, then they, in the music room, they're not going to get to choose their own groups. They don't get to choose their partners. And this is not a being mean thing. It is you are making sure everyone is included. And sometimes Not always, but sometimes what ends up happening is when you're grouping the kids together and you're assigning them partners, they are working with students who maybe they have never worked with before. Maybe they have not even had a full conversation with this particular child because they have not ever, not that they haven't had the opportunity, that's not what I'm trying to say. Maybe they just haven't, because maybe they don't have anything in common, or maybe they have their own group of friends already, so they're not used to, talking to anyone else but that group of friends, because, sometimes it gets a little cliquish, especially once you get into the upper elementary grades. And also, I know I've mentioned this before, but in their regular classroom, they're being grouped differently when it comes to reading and math, because they're usually grouped with kids who are on the same reading level or math level, and it's not necessarily behavior based. And so what I love about the music room is it is all inclusive. It doesn't matter what reading level they're on. It doesn't matter what math, problem they solved in their classroom before they came to music that day. The way everyone can feel included and the way that no one can feel left out is by grouping them with kids who they maybe don't have anything in common with, or who they maybe have been feeling left out because they feel like it's kind of a cliquish. And if you're just saying things like, go find a partner, and then there's always that one child who doesn't have one, or split into small groups and you see them constantly gravitating towards their friends. And then there's always going to be a couple of those kids who they don't know who to go to. They don't know which partner to choose. They don't know what small group to go to. And then they're always feeling kind of left out. You don't want that to happen in the music room. Now, I said base this on your classes because you will find, and we've talked about this so much, you guys, but you know your students better than anyone. You know what your students can handle, and you know your different classes better than anyone. So you're going to have certain classes where you have a small group activity and you tell them to go ahead and group up, that you're going to see them form different groups each time. And you're going to have those certain classes which are like, you wish you could clone these classes and every one of them was that way, because you're going to have certain classes where you can tell them to find a small group and they're going to pick different kids each time because they just include everyone. But then you're going to have certain classes where you are going to have to do the grouping because you don't want to ever have a child or a couple children to feel left out each time. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to you. So make sure you constantly remind, no matter what class it is, that everyone is included and no one should feel left out in the music room. And let them know that you're going to be watching this and monitoring it and making sure that this is happening, that this is, this class is for everyone. We never leave anyone out. We are never going to just constantly partner up with the same kid over and over. And you want them to, if you do allow them to choose their own partner, you want them to see that they're choosing a different partner each time. You want them to see that they're in small groups, different small groups each time. Now, I am going to go ahead and jump to that conversation real quick before I move on to the next point. This is something that I do want to address, because if you're doing small group or partner activities where, you're splitting off for different activities, like I said, sometimes allow the students to split off if it's a class that can handle that, into their own small groups or partners. But I like to do a combination of both. It depends on what activity you're doing, but if it's a simple movement activity and you can say, okay, find a partner, or you'll notice a lot of times with the different movement activities, they're rotating partners throughout the movement activity anyways. So that kind of activity, that's fine. Just find a partner, and each time they're going to find a different partner. And if there's, an odd number of kids in that class, then you can always be one of the partners, or they can have an imaginary friend in the classroom. I've done that before and the kids think it's hysterical. But when it comes to small groups, it gets a little more tricky, because if it is like a small group activity where it's a movement activity again, or they're singing in a round or something along those lines, then yes, you can let them pick their own small groups, but reminding them it needs to be different kids each time. They're not leaving anyone out. But when it's something to do with centers or a composition activity or something a little more technical, I like to group the kids because I like to see a combination of personalities, but also you can see that you already know who your kids are in your room who maybe have a learning disability or are struggling with something. And so you want to do a mixture of your stronger learners mixed with your lower learners in those kind of groups. Okay. So base it on, yes, what activity you're doing. Can your class handle it? What do you need to group them for a certain thing, or can they choose their own groups based on a movement activity or something simple like that? So that's how I like to do that. If you have questions, you guys know I always say that you can email me anytime, jessica@thedomesticmusician.com. I will get back to you on that. Okay, so let's move on. Another way to show love and kindness is through your actions as the teacher. Even if you're dealing with a discipline issue, you want to handle it with kindness. Which is so hard, you guys. I will be the first to sit here and say that we're not perfect, right? You're going to have days where you're like, I don't want to be kind to this kid because he's not kind to me. I get it. I totally get it. But remember that you are a role model. You're not just a teacher. You're a lot of things. But one of them is being a role model. So don't tell your students to show kindness and love to each other if you're struggling with doing that as well. If you're feeling like, I'm not really able to show kindness and love to certain kids in my class, it just takes practice. Where you feel like, back to the repeating yourself all the time thing. You feel like there's certain kids in your class you are constantly having to remind them of the expectations, remind them what the procedures are, and you feel like nothing you're doing is working, keep at it. Even if you're still saying the same things over and over until May 31st, keep at it. Do not give up on this child. Because a lot of times what's going to end up happening is you will see them turn around. You will see them starting to get it. You'll see them starting to, their behavior improving. Just keep at it, but stay kind and loving in the process. Love doesn't mean talk to them like this. Okay, sugar cakes, I want you to sit down and be quiet, okay? I've asked you 10 times. No, of course not. But you can still love them and be firm with them as well. But you're showing love. You're showing that you're still being kind. Even if the kid's not being kind to you, model it. Model what being kind looks like to your students. Model it if another, they see, kids notice more than you think they do. You've probably already seen that. They really do. They pick up on body language. They can see in the hallway if a teacher's been rude to you. How are you responding back to that teacher? How are you? They can see with your face gets discouraged, or you kind of are glaring at this teacher, or you did an eye roll, or you're stomping off, right? Model behavior, model your body language, model what you're saying to students and to other educators in the building as well. Okay, I want you to trust this process. Trust that when you keep repeating yourself, saying everyone's included and no one should feel left out, you've done songs about kindness and love. You're trying to model kindness to the kids and the other teachers. It's hard. It just takes practice, and trust the process. Give it time, especially if you're a new teacher. My first year teaching, I had fights in my classroom, physical fights. The very first week I was there, I started in January. I had physical fights in my classroom. It was out of control. I'm not going to lie to you. I literally almost ran for the hills. You guys have hopefully heard that story by now. If not, you can go back to episode 1 and hear about my story. But I went from experiencing fights in my classroom to every class that came through the door of my classroom, whether they were in pre-K or 5th grade, they came through my music classroom doors knowing what I expected, knowing that even if they were a little turd, can I say that on this podcast? I'm going to say it anyways. Even if they've been a little turd the rest of the day, and they've been rude to everyone else, and they have been rude to every kid in their class, and they've been a stinker to their teacher, they came through my classroom door knowing I'm not putting up with it. You are going to be kind in here, you're going to show love in here, or you're going to be doing something else, or you're going to be sitting out of this activity you're really wanting to do because I'm not doing it. Or they're going to still be learning music, still be participating in the music classroom, but in a different way. Okay. So just know that, trust the process, give it time. I'm not saying you're going to have physical fights in your classroom or that you have. I'm not saying that this is going to be perfect and by like tomorrow you're going to see everybody coming in your room like rainbows and sunshine. No, it doesn't work that way, but just trust the process. Keep at it. Say the same phrases over and over. Keep encouraging your students what you expect. Keep being a role model. Keep showing them how you act with your behavior and your words and your body language and the smile on your face. And the more you love on these kids and the kinder you are, they're going to, in return, you're going to start seeing it reciprocated not only to you, but to each other. So just keep at it. All right, so let's talk about some more activities to do in the music room. Circle activities are great because I'm talking about whole circle activities, whether it's pass the beanbag, a stone passing game, whether it's a cup passing game, whether it's a move like a folk dance where they're doing a circle dance. Any kind of circle activity you do in your music room is great because students are able to, first of all, see each other. They're able to look at each other and give eye contact. They're able to communicate non-verbally and with their bodies. They're able to communicate with each other, and they're having to work together as a class and to even with nonverbal communication. So that's circle activities are a great way to include kindness and love in the music room. Centers, and we've already talked about small group activities. If centers are new to you, that's okay, but centers are a great way. The kids are in small groups, so any kind of small group activity, which I mentioned earlier, but also they're doing small groups in centers. They're great also because they're working together. They're having to communicate with each other and reminding them you're going to communicate with kindness. If there's a certain child not understanding or not getting what they're supposed to do, they're going to be kind. They're going to remind this child what to do, and they're going to show them love, whether they feel like it or not. This is what you expect from them. You're going to walk around and monitor that and making sure that I want you to express to that child again what you want them to do. Were you talking with kindness then? And they're, oh no, I wasn't, Miss Peresta. Okay, so I need you to talk with kindness to that child and remind them that's not how you speak. Let's try it again and have them try that sentence again. And then they're going to be, oh, she's right. I didn't talk very kind to that kid. So I'm going to say this sentence again to them. Music games is another great way when they're not so when it comes to any game, what I was going to say is in the gym or outside or a board game, usually kids, not all of them, I'm not going to categorize every child, but a lot of times if they're not the winner, this can be tough. Okay. They don't like to lose. I don't like to lose. Let's be honest. Do we like to lose? No, nobody likes to lose. But kids sometimes take it really hard when they're not the winner in a game. It can be pretty tough. So encouraging each other, telling them what phrases, like I said earlier, what phrases do you want them to use when they're not the winner of a music game they're playing, for example? Say something like, I want you to say good game or good job. Even if they're not the winner, but good job. You tried your best. That's awesome. Good job. It's okay to lose. Look how far you got in the game, or you did a great job, or oh my gosh, you'll do better next time. Have those phrases you want them to say so the other child still feels encouraged. Okay, so music games is cooperative way for the kiddos to work together by playing some kind of music game. And then I want you to place, maybe you already have, look around your classroom. What positive quotes or posters, if any, do you have around your room? Do you have any, like I said, quotes? There's so many, guys. There's so many amazing quotes out there where the kids are looking at them more than you think they are. They'll be reading this. Maybe it's just one quote. I used to have one in the back of my room, and the kids, I didn't know if anybody ever saw it. It just kind of hung there because I loved the quote. And they would just walk by and be like, Miss Presta, I like that. I like that quote. I like that it says to be kind to each other because it's true. They will read it whether you think they are or not, and it's seeping in. And the more they read it, the more that's getting in their head, and the more it's like a reminder. So what reminders do you want to put up in your classroom? It could be 1 quote, 2 quotes, 10. I don't care how many, but have it up there. You could even have a different quote on your smartboard. Every day when the kids come into the room, there's a quote on the smartboard you want them to read. And you could even read it together as a class to start the day off together. Because what happens is they'll remember it as they go on. And if they don't, you can refer them back to that quote that's on the wall or that you had on the smartboard to read again together as a class. But also, like I said, any kind of motivational poster, those are great too. Have those on your wall as well. So when you're talking about the composer of the month, or any kind of composition activity, you can talk about how did this composer show love? Have conversations about that. How did they show kindness to others? How did people show kindness to them? Beethoven comes to mind. It's a great example because how did others show kindness to him when he was even losing his hearing? You can have conversations about that. What songs, what music did they write? Even the classical pieces that don't have words, have the kids listen to it. and have conversations around music. It's a great way for the kids to have conversations, and in turn, they're talking to each other, getting to know each other. By listening to music, they're having conversations about it and getting to know each other better and opening up and sharing their feelings. And it's a great way for the kids to get to know each other in the music room, and they'll be wanting to show kindness and love to one another by listening to each other's opinions and letting them know there's no wrong answer here because it's your thoughts, it's your opinion. So listen to the music of the composers, whether you're doing a modern artist of today or a composer from back in the day. Have them listen to music and talk about their interest and what they like about these songs and why they like these songs. You can do, like I mentioned earlier, a composition activity about either a song you're learning, where I mentioned where they can make up their own verse at the end of that, or they can do a full composition activity about the themes of love or kindness, or they can compose their own raps, for example. I know in my Harmony membership this month in the lesson plan pack, I'm including a rap activity for 4th grade. So raps are a great way, and if you've never done that, it's not as intimidating as it sounds, I promise. But basically, they pick a theme. They can either pick love or kindness. You break the kids into small groups. We talked earlier about how to do that. Then you give them parameters, like how many beats do you want these raps to be? What kind of instruments, if any, do you want them to add to it? Do you want them to have body percussion? What kind of words do you want them to include? Which lines of the rap need to rhyme? And then they can perform it for the class. There's a lot more that goes into writing raps, but that was a general explanation. But the whole point of it is they're going to be talking together as a group, so they're already having conversations, and then they're writing a whole rap about a certain theme, and then they're performing it. And then when they perform it, it gets the whole class having a conversation about that particular topic that each group wrote about. And then talk to your students about body language. We talked about that with your body language. How is your body reacting to certain students or teachers, right? But talk to the students about their body language. What are the expressions on their faces saying to others? What is their body language if they're angry, if their shoulders are hunched? Are they mad? Are even aware they're doing that? And then having them be aware of the others in their class, the body languages of the other kiddos in their class. Can you see if they're angry? Did you say something? Did you notice when you said something, did their face change? Having them sometimes be aware of that. They may not be even noticing that in the music room, but sometimes that kid's face changed from a smile to a frown. Maybe I said something. So what should you do? Should you correct the way you spoke to them? They're like, oh, I guess I should. Just encouraging them to keep noticing those things. Because like I said, a lot of times they may not even be aware that that's happening. They may not even be aware that they're saying something that maybe they didn't mean to come across rude, but it did because of their tone of voice. And then the last thing I want to say is, yes, like I said earlier, the very first point was you're a music teacher, but please know that you don't have to keep teaching past issues. So issues will arise in your music room, right? You're going to have behavior issues come up. You're going to have kids speaking not kindly to each other. You're going to see kids not showing love. And a lot of times it's a whole class issue. Especially, you'll probably notice the classes that you get after recess is sometimes the toughest because for some reason, whatever issues they had out there on the playground, they're bringing into the music room. It's hard for them to just stop and then be like, okay, well, all that issue is done. We'll just come into music and participate in here. No, a lot of times they're going to carry whatever just happened out there into the music room. And so address it. Don't just ignore it and keep moving on, because what's going to happen is that's going to escalate, and then it's going to be harder and harder for them to participate in the music room if whatever their issue is, which of course to you it's not a big deal, but to them it's everything. So address the issue and then move on and just have a conversation around it. It doesn't need to be longer than 5 minutes, but if there is a whole class issue that's going on, then address it. Talk with kindness. How can they move on with kindness and love, and then try to move on past it. All right. So I hope that you got something from this episode, and that you are encouraging your students to have love and kindness in the music room, and that you guys have a fantastic Valentine's Day, that there's so much love going around, that you guys are loving on your students, that you are feeling loved as a music teacher. And if you're not, know that you're doing an incredible job. I appreciate every single one of you listening to this. And I know that you are impacting the lives of your students each and every day. And what you do matters. Please do not ever forget that what you are doing matters every single day to your students and to the teachers in your school, to the community, the parents. You do matter. Whether you've heard it lately or not, you are important and valued, and I appreciate you. Have an amazing rest of your day and an amazing rest of your week, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, I would love for you to review the show and leave a rating on iTunes. To find out more about how I can help you gain momentum in your elementary music teaching career, head to thedomesticmusician.com, where you'll find free downloads, courses, the blog, and so much more. Continue teaching music and never doubt the impact you're making each and every day in the lives of your students.